In the spring of 1846, 8 women died by drowning in the rivers and ponds surrounding the settlement of Cedar Ridge, Texas. Each death appeared unconnected, separated by weeks or months, occurring in different locations across a territory spanning 30 miles. Yet when the county sheriff compiled his final report that winter, a disturbing pattern emerged from witness testimonies and coroner examinations. Every victim had been seen wearing an identical silver necklace in the days before their death. The same intricate Celtic knot design, the same tarnished chain, the same peculiar scratches along the pendant's surface. No family claimed ownership of this necklace. No jeweler in 3 counties recognized its craftsmanship. Most unsettling of all, the necklace itself vanished from evidence storage sometime between 1847 and 1851, leaving behind only sworn statements and sketches that would haunt local records for generations. The case remained buried in courthouse archives until 1923, when renovation workers discovered a locked strongbox containing documents that revealed the necklace's true origin and the horrifying reason why 8 women had been compelled to wear it before walking into the water. Where in the United States are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and remember to subscribe to Chronicles of Dread for more forgotten histories. Texas in 1846 existed in a state of transformation. Having joined the Union mere months earlier, the territory struggled with establishing law enforcement across vast distances. Cedar Ridge, population 347, served as a trading post for cattle ranchers and cotton farmers spread across the Brazos River Valley. The nearest doctor lived 40 miles away in Houston. The sheriff, Thomas Whitmore, covered an area larger than some eastern states with only 2 deputies. Communication between isolated homesteads occurred through monthly supply runs and Sunday church services. When someone died unexpectedly, particularly by drowning, investigations relied heavily on witness accounts and local knowledge. In a region where rivers could rise 6 feet overnight during spring floods, accidental drownings, while tragic, were not uncommon. The artisans who crafted jewelry in 1840s Texas typically worked in simple designs, creating practical pieces from available materials. Silver was scarce and expensive. Intricate Celtic knotwork required skills more commonly found in established eastern cities or among European immigrants with specialized training. The necklace that would claim 8 lives represented a level of craftsmanship rarely seen on the frontier. Sarah Elizabeth Manning, 24 years old, became the first documented victim on March 15, 1846. The wife of a cattle rancher, she lived with her husband and 2 young children on a homestead 12 miles north of Cedar Ridge. According to her husband's sworn statement, Sarah had never owned expensive jewelry before the necklace appeared. Joseph Manning testified that his wife found the necklace on their property 3 days before her death, hanging from a fence post near their well. She claimed it must have been dropped by a traveling merchant, or perhaps belonged to the previous landowners. Sarah cleaned the tarnished silver and began wearing it daily, remarking to neighbors that it brought her unusual dreams of water and distant voices calling her name. On the morning of March 15th, Sarah left her house before dawn, still wearing her nightgown and the silver necklace. Her husband discovered her absence when their infant's crying woke him at sunrise. Search parties found her body in Willow Creek, nearly 2 miles from their home, floating face down in water barely 3 feet deep. The county coroner, Dr. Edward Pierce, noted in his examination that Sarah showed no signs of struggle or injury. Her lungs were filled with creek water, consistent with drowning, but her positioning suggested she had walked deliberately into the water and simply remained there until she drowned. Most significantly, the necklace had vanished from her body. Joseph Manning insisted she had been wearing it when she left the house, but extensive searches of the creek bed revealed nothing. From Sarah Manning's diary, recovered from her home and submitted as evidence. March 12, 1846. The most curious thing has occurred. I have come into possession of the most beautiful necklace, silver wrought with patterns I have never seen before. When I hold it up to the light, the designs seem to move and shift. Joseph says, I am imagining things, but I swear the metal grows warm against my skin. Last night I dreamed I was walking beside a great river, and a woman's voice called to me from beneath the water. She wore a dress of green silk and beckoned for me to join her. I woke with the taste of river water in my mouth. The second victim, Maria Consuela Rodriguez, died on April 7, 1846. The 19-year-old daughter of Mexican immigrants who had remained in Texas after independence, Maria worked as a seamstress in Cedar Ridge. Unlike Sarah Manning, Maria had no husband or family to provide immediate testimony about her final days. The circumstances of Maria's death came to light through statements from her employer, Mrs. Catherine Holbrook, and several customers who visited the dress shop in early April. According to these witnesses, Maria had acquired a silver necklace approximately 1 week before her death. She told different people conflicting stories about its origin. To Mrs. Holbrook, she claimed an elderly woman had traded it for mending services. To customer Mrs. Rebecca Stone, she said she had found it in the street after a rainstorm. Mrs. Stone provided the most detailed account of Maria's behavior during her final week. In her statement to Sheriff Whitmore, she described visiting the dress shop on April 5th to collect an altered skirt. Maria appeared distracted and frequently touched the necklace while speaking. When Mrs. Stone complimented the jewelry, Maria responded strangely, saying the necklace belonged to someone who needs the water more than air. Maria Rodriguez's body was discovered by fishermen in a pond 3 miles west of Cedar Ridge. Like Sarah Manning, she had drowned in shallow water with no signs of struggle. Her clothes were not torn or displaced, suggesting she had entered the water calmly. The necklace was missing from her body, but 2 fishermen swore they had seen her wearing distinctive silver jewelry when they encountered her walking toward the pond at dusk on April 6th. From the testimony of fisherman Robert Hayes, "Miss Maria, she walked right past us like we wasn't even there. Her eyes looked strange, kind of empty, and focused on something we couldn't see. That necklace caught the last light of the sun, and I noticed how the silver seemed to glow against her brown skin. When I called out to ask if she needed help, she turned to look at us, but it was like she was looking through us. She said something in Spanish I didn't understand, then kept walking toward the water." The third death occurred on May 2, 1946, when 31-year-old widow Eleanor Blackwood drowned in a cattle watering trough on her own property. Mrs. Blackwood had been struggling to maintain her late husband's ranch since his death from fever the previous winter. Neighbors described her as practical and strong-willed, making her sudden death particularly shocking to the community. Eleanor's sister, visiting from Louisiana, provided crucial testimony about the necklace's appearance. Agnes Blackwood testified that Eleanor had never shown interest in jewelry beyond her simple wedding ring. However, during Agnes's visit in late April, Eleanor proudly displayed a silver necklace she claimed to have inherited from their deceased grandmother. Agnes found this claim puzzling, as she remembered their grandmother's jewelry clearly and had never seen the Celtic knot necklace before. When she questioned Eleanor about the discrepancy, her sister became agitated and insisted the necklace had always been in the family. Eleanor began wearing it constantly, even to bed, and complained of dreams where she was swimming in an endless dark lake. The discovery of Eleanor's body presented the most disturbing circumstances yet. Ranch hands found her at dawn on May 2nd, kneeling in the cattle trough with her head and shoulders submerged in 18 inches of water. Her hands gripped the sides of the wooden trough, and her position suggested she had knelt down deliberately and held herself underwater until she drowned. The cattle had avoided the trough entirely that morning, clustering around a distant water source despite their usual routines. Once again, the silver necklace had vanished, though Agnes Blackwood swore Eleanor had been wearing it at dinner the previous evening. By May 1846, Sheriff Thomas Whitmore began documenting similarities between the 3 drowning deaths. His investigation notes, preserved in county records, reveal a growing concern about the missing necklace and its apparent connection to the victims' unusual behavior before their deaths. From Sheriff Whitmore's case file, 3 women, all of sound mind according to family and neighbors, have drowned in circumstances that defy natural explanation. Each was observed wearing identical jewelry in the days before death. Each entered water voluntarily and made no attempt at rescue or escape. Each displayed changes in behavior and sleep patterns consistent with mental disturbance, yet showed no signs of illness or injury. The missing necklace suggests either theft after death or supernatural influence beyond my understanding. The 4th victim, 16-year-old Hannah Pierce, daughter of the county coroner, died on May 28, 1846. Her death sent shockwaves through Cedar Ridge, as the Pierce family commanded respect, and Dr. Pierce himself had examined the previous drowning victims. Hannah's youth and family connections ensured thorough documentation of her final days. Hannah discovered the necklace while helping her mother clean the church for Sunday services on May 24th. According to her mother's testimony, the jewelry was wrapped in a piece of faded green silk tucked behind the altar where church supplies were stored. Hannah claimed the necklace called to her, and despite her mother's objections, she insisted on wearing it home. Dr. Pierce's personal journal, submitted as evidence after his daughter's death, provides intimate details of Hannah's transformation. He wrote of her sudden interest in local waterways, her requests to visit the sites where previous victims had drowned, and her claims that the necklace showed her visions of a beautiful underwater city where she would be welcomed as royalty. Hannah Pierce drowned in the Brazos River on May 28th, walking directly into the current during the evening church service. Multiple witnesses saw her leave the building mid-sermon, still wearing her Sunday dress and the silver necklace. By the time concerned parishioners followed her outside, she had already entered the water and shown no response to their desperate calls for her to return to shore. Dr. Pierce himself recovered his daughter's body and conducted the coroner's examination. His official report noted that Hannah had inhaled massive quantities of river water, but showed no defensive wounds or signs of struggle. Her hands were folded peacefully across her chest, and her face held what he described as an expression of profound contentment. The necklace disappeared from Hannah's body sometime between her death and the funeral preparation, despite being locked in Dr. Pierce's medical office. The doctor's journal entry from May 30th reads, "I have lost my daughter and my faith in rational explanation. The necklace that killed Hannah has vanished from my locked surgery. I found the door standing open this morning, though I hold the only key." A trail of river water led from the examination table to the open door, but no footprints marked the floor. The fifth death shattered any remaining belief that the drownings were coincidental. On June 15, 1846, Mary Catherine O'Sullivan, a 28-year-old Irish immigrant, drowned in a rain barrel outside her family's cottage. Mary had arrived in Texas only 3 months earlier with her husband and infant son, seeking opportunities in the expanding territory. Patrick O'Sullivan's testimony revealed that his wife had found the necklace in their vegetable garden on June 11th, partially buried beside the potato plants. Mary claimed it resembled jewelry worn by her grandmother in County Cork, though Patrick had never seen his wife's grandmother wear anything beyond simple wooden beads. Mary's behavior changed dramatically after finding the necklace. She began speaking Irish phrases she had never used before, including words Patrick didn't recognize. She spent hours staring at their rain barrel, claiming she could see faces in the water's surface. On the night before her death, she told Patrick that her grandmother's spirit had visited her in dreams, explaining that the necklace would help her find peace beneath the water. Patrick discovered Mary's body on the morning of June 15th, submerged head-first in the rain barrel with her legs extending upward. The physical impossibility of accidentally drowning in such a position convinced even skeptical neighbors that supernatural forces were involved. Mary would have needed to climb onto the barrel's edge and deliberately plunge her head into the water, then remain in that position until she drowned. The necklace vanished from Mary's neck between Patrick's discovery of her body and the arrival of Sheriff Whitmore. Patrick swore he had seen the silver chain around his wife's throat when he first found her, but by the time the sheriff arrived to examine the scene, no trace of jewelry remained. From Patrick O'Sullivan's statement, "Mary, she was not herself those last few days. She spoke to empty air in the old language, words I never heard her grandmother use. She said the water people were calling her home, that she had been away too long. I thought it was grief for leaving Ireland, but now I know something evil had hold of her mind. That cursed necklace, it took my beautiful wife away from me and our boy." The sixth victim, African-American freedwoman Celia Washington, died on July 9, 1846, under circumstances that highlighted the social tensions of frontier Texas. Celia, 25 years old, had gained her freedom when her master died and left no heirs. She lived alone in a small cabin near Cedar Ridge, supporting herself through laundry services and herb gathering. Due to racial prejudices of the era, Celia's death initially received limited official investigation. However, several white families who employed her services provided statements that established the familiar pattern. Celia had acquired the silver necklace approximately 1 week before her death, claiming she had traded medicinal herbs to an elderly woman for the jewelry. Mrs. Dorothy Fleming, whose family employed Celia for washing services, noted dramatic changes in Celia's behavior during early July. Celia spoke frequently of water spirits from African folklore, claiming her ancestors were calling her to join them in the river. She began incorporating water imagery into her conversations and appeared to lose interest in her usual activities. Celia Washington drowned in a shallow tributary of the Brazos River on July 9th, discovered by children who had come to collect crawfish. Her body was positioned sitting upright on the stream bottom, her back against a submerged log, with her eyes open and fixed on the sky above the water's surface. The children reported that fish were swimming around her peacefully, showing no fear of the human presence. The silver necklace disappeared from Celia's body before Sheriff Whitmore could examine the scene. Local children had played near the stream for several hours before alerting adults, and any evidence of the necklace's presence was lost. However, multiple witnesses confirmed Celia had been wearing distinctive silver jewelry in the days before her death. From the statement of 10-year-old Timothy Fleming, Miss Celia looked different sitting in that water. Her skin seemed to shine, and the fish were swimming all around her, like she belonged there. She looked peaceful, like she was just resting. When we first saw her, I thought she was alive and just cooling off in the stream. It wasn't until we got closer that we realized she wasn't breathing. The 7th drowning occurred on August 3, 1846, claiming the life of Rebecca Ann Thornton, a 33-year-old schoolteacher from New England. Rebecca had come to Texas to establish educational opportunities for children in the rural settlement, representing the kind of civilizing influence many frontier communities sought to attract. Rebecca's landlady, Mrs. Elizabeth Hartwell, provided detailed testimony about her boarder's final weeks. According to Mrs. Hartwell, Rebecca discovered the necklace in her classroom on July 28th, hidden inside an old Bible she was using to teach reading lessons. Rebecca claimed the jewelry must have belonged to a previous teacher, though no other educator had worked in Cedar Ridge before her arrival. Rebecca's letters to her sister in Massachusetts, preserved in court records, document her growing obsession with the necklace and its effects on her dreams. She wrote of visions where she stood before a classroom of children whose faces were pale and dripping with water, teaching lessons about underwater kingdoms and the peace that came from surrendering to the current. The circumstances of Rebecca's death were witnessed by several of her students. On August 3rd, during the afternoon recess, Rebecca walked out of the schoolhouse wearing the silver necklace and headed directly toward the pond behind the building. Her students initially thought she planned to collect pond water for a nature lesson, but became alarmed when she entered the water fully clothed. 8-year-old Martha Caldwell later testified that Miss Thornton walked into the pond until the water reached her waist, then turned to face the shore and smiled at her students before sitting down in the water and leaning backward until her head disappeared beneath the surface. She made no struggle or attempt to resurface, remaining motionless until she drowned. The children's screams brought several parents running, but Rebecca's body had already sunk to the pond's bottom. When men from town recovered her remains, the necklace had once again vanished without explanation. From Rebecca Thornton's final letter to her sister, dated August 2, 1846, "Dearest Margaret, I fear this may be my last correspondence, though I write not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of completion. The necklace I mentioned in my previous letters has revealed its true purpose to me. In my dreams I see a great underwater library where knowledge flows like current and wisdom gleams like silver. The children who once learned in classrooms now swim freely through halls of coral and pearls. I understand now that my calling extends beyond this terrestrial school into realms where teaching and learning take forms unimaginable to earthbound minds." The 8th and final death devastated the entire community of Cedar Ridge. On September 21, 1846, Clara May Whitmore, the 22-year-old daughter of Sheriff Thomas Whitmore, became the necklace's last victim. Her death broke her father's spirit and led to his resignation from law enforcement. Clara discovered the necklace in her family's barn on September 17th, hung from a nail where her father stored his investigative notes about the previous 7 drownings. Sheriff Whitmore had been obsessively studying the case, trying to understand the connection between the victims and their shared fate. Clara claimed she felt compelled to examine the evidence files, despite her father's strict instructions to avoid his office. According to her father's anguished testimony, Clara began exhibiting the familiar symptoms immediately after handling the necklace. She spoke of dreams where the 7 previous victims welcomed her to an underwater sisterhood, explaining that she was chosen to complete their circle. She claimed the necklace had been waiting for her specifically, as the sheriff's daughter possessed the spiritual strength necessary to fulfill its purpose. Clara Whitmore drowned on September 21st in the same creek where the first victim, Sarah Manning, had died. Her father found her body at dawn, alerted by neighbors who had seen her walking toward Willow Creek in her nightgown. Clara was floating peacefully in the exact location where Sarah's body had been discovered 6 months earlier. Sheriff Whitmore's final case report, filed before his resignation, documented his daughter's death with professional detachment despite his personal devastation. He noted that Clara's body showed no signs of struggle and that her expression reflected serenity rather than the panic typically associated with drowning. Most significantly, the necklace remained around Clara's neck when her body was recovered. For the first time since the deaths began, the silver necklace did not disappear from a victim's body. Sheriff Whitmore carefully removed it and placed it in the evidence vault, swearing that the cursed jewelry would never claim another life. He resigned his position the following day and left Cedar Ridge permanently, refusing to discuss the case with his replacement or anyone else who inquired about the mysterious deaths. From Sheriff Whitmore's final report, my investigation concludes that 8 women died by drowning between March and September of 1846, each after coming into possession of an identical silver necklace of unknown origin. The jewelry appeared and disappeared without explanation, suggesting supernatural forces beyond legal jurisdiction. My daughter Clara, the final victim, possessed the necklace at the time of death, ending the cycle of appearance and disappearance that characterized previous cases. I recommend the necklace be destroyed by fire or removed from this county permanently. The mystery of the necklace's origin remained unsolved until 1923, when courthouse renovation revealed a hidden compartment in the basement vault. Inside, workers discovered a metal strongbox containing documents that predated the establishment of Cedar Ridge by several decades. Among these papers was an inventory of personal effects belonging to Moira Blackheart, executed by drowning in the Sabine River on October 31, 1812. According to court records from the Republic of Texas, Moira Blackheart was accused of witchcraft by residents of a settlement that was later abandoned and whose location was forgotten. Witnesses testified that Moira had used supernatural powers to influence other women, compelling them to abandon their families and follow her into the wilderness. When confronted by authorities, Moira allegedly cursed her accusers, promising that her influence would continue even after her death. The inventory listed among Moira's possessions 1 silver necklace wrought with Celtic designs, said to hold power over water and women's minds. This description matched exactly the jewelry that had claimed 8 lives in Cedar Ridge, 34 years after Moira's execution. Additional documents revealed that Moira Blackheart had been the 7th woman in her own family to die by drowning while wearing the necklace. According to fragmentary records, the jewelry had originated in Ireland during the 1600s, created by a silversmith whose wife and daughters had all drowned mysteriously while wearing his masterpiece. The necklace had traveled to America with Irish immigrants, claiming victims in several East Coast communities, before making its way to Texas. The documents suggested that the necklace required 8 victims to complete some form of supernatural cycle, after which it would remain dormant until disturbed by human interference. Moira Blackheart had been attempting to fulfill this cycle when she was captured and executed, leaving her work incomplete until the necklace found its way to Cedar Ridge decades later. The final document in the strongbox was a letter written by Moira Blackheart on the morning of her execution. In it, she explained that the necklace served as a bridge between the world of the living and an underwater realm where women could escape the limitations of terrestrial existence. She described the 8 victims not as deaths, but as transformations, claiming that their spirits lived on in a paradise beneath the water where they served as guides for future generations. From Moira Blackheart's final letter, the silver circle binds us across time and distance, calling daughters of water to their true home beneath the waves. 8 must answer the call to complete the sacred pattern, 8 souls to open the gateway between worlds. Those who judge me know not the gift I offer, the freedom that waits in the depths where no man can follow. The necklace will find its way to those who are ready, and they will find their way to the water that welcomes them home. The revelation of the necklace's history explained many puzzles from the 1846 case, but it raised disturbing new questions about the nature of the victims' experiences. If Moira Blackheart's claims were accurate, the 8 women of Cedar Ridge had not simply drowned, but had been transformed into something else entirely. Their peaceful expressions, their deliberate entry into the water, and their apparent lack of fear suggested they had embraced their fate willingly. The discovery also revealed why Clara Whitmore had been the final victim and why the necklace had remained with her body. As the 8th woman to wear it, she had completed the cycle Moira Blackheart had begun in 1812. The necklace's purpose had been fulfilled, its supernatural hunger satisfied by the prescribed number of souls. Sheriff Thomas Whitmore's careful preservation of the evidence had inadvertently prevented the necklace from claiming additional victims. By locking it away immediately after Clara's death, he had broken the pattern of disappearance and reappearance that had characterized the previous 7 cases. The necklace remained in the courthouse vault for 77 years, dormant but not destroyed. The fate of the necklace after 1923 remains unclear. Courthouse records indicate that the strongbox and its contents were transferred to the Texas State Historical Society for preservation and study. However, archives from that organization contain no mention of receiving Moira Blackheart's documents or the silver necklace. Correspondence from the period suggests that the materials disappeared during transport, lost somewhere between the Cedar Ridge courthouse and the state capitol. Local historians who have researched the case believe the necklace may have been stolen by someone aware of its value as a historical artifact, unaware of its deadly history. Others theorize that the necklace itself had chosen to disappear, sensing that its dormant period was ending and new victims were needed to begin another cycle. In 1951, newspapers in 3 different Texas counties reported unusual drowning cases involving women who had been seen wearing distinctive silver jewelry before their deaths. These incidents occurred over a period of 6 months, separated by hundreds of miles, but investigators noted similarities to the Cedar Ridge case. The reports ceased as suddenly as they had begun, and no connecting evidence was ever discovered. The most recent potential sighting occurred in 1978, when a estate sale in Dallas advertised the auction of a vintage Celtic necklace with historical significance. The sale was cancelled at the last minute after the elderly seller was found drowned in her bathtub the night before the auction. Family members insisted she had been wearing valuable silver jewelry when they found her body, but no such items were discovered among her effects. The story of the 8 women who wore the same necklace before drowning remains one of Texas's most enduring unsolved mysteries. Modern researchers have attempted to apply scientific explanations to the case, suggesting mass hysteria, contaminated water supplies, or coincidental timing might account for the deaths. However, these theories fail to address the consistent disappearance and reappearance of the identical necklace, or the supernatural elements documented by multiple witnesses. The case has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and paranormal investigations, but no conclusive evidence has ever been found to either prove or disprove the supernatural aspects of the story. The descendants of the 8 victims have largely avoided discussing their ancestors' deaths, preferring to let the past remain buried. If the necklace resurfaced today, would anyone dare to wear it? The answer may depend on whether one believes in Moira Blackheart's promise of underwater paradise or Sheriff Whitmore's warning about cursed jewelry that compels women to their deaths. The waters of Texas still flow toward the Gulf of Mexico, and somewhere beneath their surface, according to local legend, 8 women wait to welcome their next sister home.